of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning all.
Morning.
I call the meeting to order, and don't have anything else to add, right?
No.
So approve the agenda is printed.
Motion to approve.
I will second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda is printed. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Minutes from the 11th.
Is that motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the meeting of the July 11th meeting. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. General public concerns. Haven't heard nothing from Brett Hartlaw in regards to that other study, so I'm gonna try to get a hold of him sometime this week and touch base with, so we can keep this thing somewhere moving forward. All right, is there a Corey Lampy available?
Yes.
Welcome.
Welcome, I just saw from here, you'll be up there.
We'd like you to come up here.
Yeah, they could pick you up on the mic better.
Yep.
Well, what I'm here to talk to you guys about is, a couple weeks ago, I spoke to Jeremy Holgreaf, he's the chief deputy in Wright County. And he was explaining that he was on a courthouse safety committee over there where they did a survey of the courthouse grounds. And they ended up having a guy came in, and he helped them formulate a study, and he went through and inspected all the offices and the entrances and exits and stuff for safety, and ended up compiling a report and submitted it to them for review. And so that got me thinking, and from talking to them, they also mentioned that possibly that this was something that, and I'm not quite clear on it, but this is maybe something that's required, at least the study. We're not under any obligation to do what his recommendations are. So I've reached out to him. He works for the Department of Homeland Security, and he's the only one that does these things for the state of Iowa as of right now. And so he said that if we got the approval from you guys, he could put us on his agenda. It's 100% free, doesn't cost the county any money whatsoever. And again, the report that he compiles, we can do everything that he recommends, we can pick bits and pieces of it, we can take our time, we're under no obligation to do everything instantly or to do any of it, period. And so I guess I just got to thinking that, in talking to Trish a little bit, we thought that it would be wise to get your guys' approval first, if you guys think this is something that would be wise to have this guy come in. He did say he was booked up until, at this point, till either April or May, before he would be able to come in here. But he did say that there was a possibility, if you got to looking at his schedule, for instance, if he saw he was scheduled to do Cassuth County in November or December, that possibly he could knock us out either on his way passing through. But he does other things than just courthouses. He does other infrastructure needs such as wastewater treatment plants, water plants, anything like that, just to kind of, improve security and give people ideas on things that they can do to try to make things more safe. So that's really all I'm here to talk to you about, and just see if you guys are on board with this, and if so, I will send him an email and reach out to him and see if he can put us on the agenda at some point to do a survey of our courthouse.
Have you talked to any of the surrounding cities or towns around here that may have a need for something like that?
Not the towns. I did, we've been having meetings with the schools, because as you can imagine, right now, the security at the schools is a very high priority, and so we've been having some meetings. He did say that their organization can do that type of stuff for schools, but he said at this point, he's the only one for the state of Iowa, and he's already booked up, like I said, through April or May.
Mm-hmm.
So, he said he probably wouldn't be able to help out the schools, because they're under a deadline right now for a grant. So he probably said that he wouldn't be able to fit them in to do anything for them at this point, plus they were waiting for some guidance from the state under their new mandates and stuff, but, so nothing like that, but he did say that depending on when he was able to get in here and where the school was at, he said it would be possible that if either that principal or the superintendent could walk through when he did his audit of the courthouse, and he said there was some stuff that everybody would probably be able to pick up, benefit from. They could kind of see what he's looking for, policies, procedures, things like that. So they could kind of get some pointers as far as what he looks at when he comes in and does a safety audit.
Well, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Right.
Especially when the cost is what it is.
Yeah.
We don't have anything, we aren't gonna have to put anything out, so we might just, well, take advantage of something that the federal government is offering
I think so.
free.
Well, I'll make that motion to do the security audit.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, and I guess I would just put it on there ASAP, whatever fits his schedule. If he can let us know, so people know that somebody's wandered around here.
I would expect that when we get lined up, that myself or Sheriff Kruger, several of us would try to be present to kind of walk around with him to point out some things and help him get around and point things out, so.
Perfect. All right,
Right.
we have a motion and a second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries. Thanks, Cory, for taking care of that.
Thank you, Cory.
Christopher Judge.
Okay. Wow. Well, we have, Randy is here.
He had his title, and I don't have it on.
Are you against going early?
But I can get it for you. You kidding?
Well, he would like to sit here for another hour, I'm sure.
No, I'm not gonna reply. Last time I said something, I might've got sent to the office, so I...
No, I told you, you're a final citizen.
Well, let's keep that rumor going.
I would say this, after the safety and...
All right, sounds good. That bench right back there's coming apart.
Seriously.
All right.
Okay, just a couple things here. I had an email from Stacy Lynch of Midas, and she's the one that's been working on our zoning map.
Zoning maps.
And she indicated that she was real close to having those completed.
Oh,
Assuming that the technology, she said, was gonna cooperate. And my thought on it was that, once we get those, we probably need to have those reviewed. And I thought, a couple of different entities, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then also the Board of Supervisors. We're gonna have to go through some process to approve them. And obviously, what we have right now, as we've mentioned many, many times, is not adequate. And, so, I haven't seen them myself, so, whatever they come up with, I think I'd like to go through that process with your approval. Planning and, or Zoning and Planning Commission, we have 4 members right now. I have some feelers out to people, asking them to serve both on the Zoning and Planning Commission, and then we also need one for the Board of Adjustments. And so I've got information out to people. I haven't got anything back yet, but, I anticipate they'll get back to me soon.
So before they print all this stuff off, will it be able to look at it and see that, you don't need
Right.
a magnifying glass, you can read numbers, we can,
My assumption is that, I'm assuming that they will bring it to us if we want changes, then we can probably bring it back to them. And I might mention too, this was just going to be the minimum. Somewhere down the road, after we get the, new ordinance, after the Planning and Zoning Commission goes through the, comprehensive plan, somewhere down the road, then we can probably decide how much more we wanna go. As far as technical overlays, they could be, subject to download on the website, whatever. And, so, my anticipation is it's gonna be better than what we got.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I'm encouraged about that. As soon as I, get those, I'll try to set up a time when the Planning and Zoning Committee can come together and take a look at those. I'll show them what we have, and then what we can go to, and if you prefer, I'd come and do that here as well.
Wouldn't you expect that when you get these back, that you'd meet with the planning and zoning go through them, have the discussion there first,
Right.
before anything comes to us.
Yeah.
And that way, we have their, that committee's input.
That was kind of my thought.
Okay, that would make sense, and then they can kind of, or they and you,
Right.
give us a report as to, hey, we looked at these, and
This is what we think needs to be changed.
Right, this is how we see
And that
it.
might take a little time, because I would like to give them to them, to, you
That's
know,
fine.
take them and review them, look at them, you know, that kind of thing for a little while.
Yep.
And like you say, get input back from them, see what they think.
See what their input is to let us know what the
Right.
zoning board's input
And then
was.
you can look at them too, and if you take a little time, you can review them as well. I think it's probably gonna be important we look at what we have compared to what we're gonna have,
Right?
you know? So, try to do that in a, you know, timely manner. if
Well, you said that you start off with the good news that they're fairly close, barring technology failures, so in the coming month, I mean, we're
Well,
getting
she
them
told
all.
me last week on the email, she'd like to have them done by Friday of last week.
Okay, well, maybe they'll be done by Friday of this week then.
Maybe.
Okay,
And so, that was encouraging.
yes.
You know, I think it was $300 gonna be well worth,
Oh, I think so.
you know, and, so, I'll keep you updated on that, okay?
So if anything has changed because of these maps, then we'll have to go through
They would have to be authorized, yes.
that's what I'm,
According to what the ordinance is called for, yeah, they would have to be approved by the board of supervisors. And-
well, let's wait to see what we get, and then we'll start chasing those.
I had one the other day and I was like, you know, so, wasn't great help in any way. The other thing, Midas has hired an intern, and according to Stacy Lynch, she has already started in looking at some information for our county, as we have contracted with them for the comprehensive plan. And she indicated that sometime in August, we could possibly have a first meeting. You may recall, I gave you a kind of a timely outline of how long that would take, and it looks like 12 to 14 months. And basically, the first meeting would just be looking at what is the comprehensive plan and why are they needed, that kind of thing. She indicated that normally counties use their zoning and planning commission to do that, committee to do that, but she said it's not limited to that. And in my way of thinking, you know, I'd like to have a little more input of maybe a few more people involved, maybe people from some of the cities, some of the organizations. I don't wanna get too many, you know?
Yeah.
Or maybe at-large people, whatever. But if you could give me any input on that, what you think, not necessarily specific people, but who you would think of that might be a good idea, because this is all encompassing, of course, as we've said.
How about
That kind of thing.
a representative from each outlying community?
That would probably be all right. There are probably going to be, I think she indicated, about 5 to 8 meetings throughout that 12 to 14 months. And so we want to make sure that people are committed to, you know, at least, you know, wanting to help with that. I think the important part will be, is making sure everybody understands what the need is, you know, and at least get an idea of what, you know, I would say very few people know that there is a comprehensive plan, you know? And so I think the education of that, for the entire county is gonna be important. And the other thing too is to understand that the next process, of course, would be the zoning ordinances relate exactly to that, along with other entities within the county. And so I think it's important to have a group of people that are a core number of people. I don't know how many, but I think in my mind it would be more than just zoning and planning commission. So your input on that, you can think about it, you can let me know. And so hopefully I'll know more whenever they get back to me, or I get back to them, but I probably need, something in place by somewhere around the first part of August, so, you can let me know on that. I don't have anybody specific in mind, but I'd just like to have a little more input. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You may agree or disagree, but that's fine. She just said...
I think a person could put a request out to the communities if there's someone in their community that wants to be involved.
Right.
Because it's gotta be somebody who's, like you say, committed.
Yeah, and so that's why I say a community member, but not to say that it has to be the mayor, the
Yeah.
council person, but someone that would be able to get to the meetings, would pay attention, would...
I know there's like in Humboldt, there's the real estate, group, and there's, they got their own planning and committees and stuff like that, and
I think it's a very
they would
important,
be a liaison,
very important though to reach out to the county as a whole, at large, as a whole.
Right.
So that way, someone from, the communities,
Yep.
each, just take the surrounding area of each community, then you'd have a pretty diverse group.
Well, I can begin, doing that.
There are some people in communities that aren't the mayor, and they aren't on the city
No.
council, but they're very community-minded, they're area-minded, and they would probably be very enthused to take part in this, so that's, my suggestion.
In saying that, I thought, well, maybe, get a hold of somebody in each city,
Yeah.
and then they can make a, recommendation possibly.
That's right. Just so they're aware that, hey, we would like a representative from your area.
If you're interested.
If you're interested.
Yeah.
Maybe
Could we
give them
reach-
a little sheet that has like kind of what
What,
expectations
yeah, what it
are,
involves.
Yeah, what it
Yeah, I would give them the timeline.
Yeah.
And then also, Iowa State put out basically, it's just a one-sheet thing that explains what the planning and zoning committee is, and also what
And how it affects their community.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It affects everything, so it's pretty important. Hopefully, we'll be able to accomplish this within the 12 or 14-month period, like they said.
Yeah.
I look forward to that, big time.
Nice when that's all done.
Yeah. One last thing is, our Board of Adjustments were to meet, for the Fridolfsen, as you had requested an extension on that. The Board of Adjustments got legal counsel, on, information that they had, questions that they had about procedures and, recommendations basically of, what they need to do to proceed, as you recall. And so they have, acquired that. There's been correspondence back and forth with questions, that type of thing. And, but at end of, not last week, but the week before, we were setting up a time for, post a meeting for that. And one of our Board of Adjustments member lost a family member, lost a brother. And so is not available this week either. And so, my request for you today is to extend that to we'll have a meeting on the 26th, if you approve that. And so, he would be back later on the 25th, so I've been on the phone, and Dave can attest to that. Poor Dave's got ear problems for me just talking in his ear about trying to change things, so.
Okay.
I just hit my head and let it run out.
I don't,
So you need to wait till next week to, hold your meeting, basically? Well, that's fine. I mean, I don't know.
I think it just needs to have approval.
Well,
Since you, formally asked for
So
30 days.
the date you'd want is August 26th?
Yes.
All right, I'll make the motion to grant an extension till August 26th for the Board of Adjustments special exemption.
We have a motion and a second to push the extension out to the 26th so that they can hold their meeting. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
July,
August.
August?
Was it August 26th?
No, July.
Did I, why did I say August? Excuse me.
You just
July
made that up.
26th.
I
I had August on my mind.
We better change
No, he just needs
the
to, he
motion.
just needs
I'll
to...
correct my motion.
I think did you say August?
Yeah, you did.
I think I did say
I think
August.
you
I wrote it down as right after he said it, so either...
Next week.
Cause I wrote all this stuff down too.
This is a week extension.
So, excuse mine, I made a mistake, I'll correct my motion to July 26th.
And I'll second the July 26th.
Now we have a correction for July 26th as opposed to August 26th. Any other
Glad
discussion?
somebody caught that.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, we're now backed up a month. Okay,
I, just mentioned too, I contacted, one neighbor and also Mr. Dawson, about that. And so that was by advisement of the, legal counsel as well, to keep
Keep them informed.
any interested parties, keep them,
Are we expecting after that meeting another report from you then, probably?
Yes, there are three options. If the Board of Adjustments decides we're not gonna review it, basically it stands, okay? Then it goes to interested parties and their decision whether or not they wanna go further in the court. If the Board of Adjustments does decide to review it, now there's 2 or 3 possibilities for that as well.
Okay.
They could result in the same thing at the end, but possibly not, so.
So versus not put the cart before the horse, I figured that your next meeting, next week, will go through a lot of that.
That was your request, is to have them review.
And that's-
Yeah.
That will help.
They have the ordinance, says they have the right to say, no, we're not gonna review it.
Right. So, well, good luck with that meeting next week.
Yeah,
thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we're still ahead of schedule for the 9 o'clock, reclassification hearing, so we can go down to the bottom towards, accept and place on file, the treasurer's annual report ending June 30th. We have that copy here in front of you. Fairly self-explanatory there, looks like.
I'll make that motion to accept
Janet?
and place on file the semi-annual report ending June 30th, 2022.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second to accept the treasurer's semi-annual report. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We pass that. We have Dean's Veterans Report. Is there anything on there that, Dave, you need to bring us up to speed on?
Nope, we went over budget a little bit last year. I think we did have 2 funerals last year that I know of. That's $5,000 right there, so. Other than that, I think we're doing pretty good.
Are you, for transporting veterans, do you have any issues when somebody needs a ride to Des Moines, or do you get enough?
Right now, I don't think so. We've got a couple of vets that volunteered to take them.
That's what I wondered, if you had help that,
We've got 2 of them that's pretty faithful about, hey, can you transport a guy down to the clinic in Fort Dodge or to VA in Des Moines? We can always take them down, to the VFW in Fort Dodge, and they pick them up there, and they've got a van that goes to Des Moines.
Oh.
So you're down there all day, but, well, through all the equipment.
all right, well, I guess if it ever gets to that point, we put a call out to try to help you out, if we need to.
If anybody wants to volunteer to call vets, let Dean know. We're always looking for volunteers for something.
Right. All right, any questions on that? Otherwise, I accept the motion.
Make a motion to approve the Veterans Quarterly Report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the quarterly report for the veterans for June 30th. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
gain some, we lose some.
Okay, looks like,
That's yours if you really need to study it more. No.
we can go to our committee reports. We still have 5 or 6 minutes here.
We got the treasurer's report to do that.
Yep, we did that one first.
Yep.
Just looking here.
Okay, on the 12th, I had a daycare meeting.
That's it.
That is it.
I guess I go down to Wednesday, we had the mobile food pantry down there. Got rid of all the food. That was at 4:30 in the afternoon. 6:30 we had the animal shelter. And if you've been following on Facebook, the 2 dogs that got picked up by Thor are doing great. They're, playing and got their energy back. They're still skinny, but they're eating good, so. Then on the 14th, I went over by Xenia Avenue, just off of 3, north of 3, about a mile and a quarter. Looked at a chicken manure pile, got complaints on it. While I was there, my wife's van got filled up with flies. And I stayed on the road, but, this pile is large. I do mean large. You can see it off of 17 if you're going north, mile and a quarter over. Look back to the west and you'll see it. You can see it from all 4 roads around you. And it is pile probably 15 foot tall. Talked to John Beatty and he says to have him, anybody that complains on it, talk to the DNR. So, that's all I have.
I didn't have any official extracurricular meetings, did a little correspondence with some weed concerns in CRP, and I believe we got that successfully resolved. So, a little weed stuff, looked at a few areas, and did that, but that went pretty well, so that's really all the extracurricular stuff for last week.
I, stopped out to the dog shelter before the meeting, 'cause I couldn't be there for it, and checked on them 2 dogs that have been, they're tough-looking dogs,
They are tough.
but they are, like I say, responding well.
Friendly as all get out, nice dogs.
Yeah. And I will comment, they're doing an exceptional job out there. They really are. So that's the only thing I had. I was up to, T.B. Anderson to sign papers again for IDDA, and I'm trying to get Trish on there as a signer yet. I'm still waiting for documentation to get her so she can sign if I'm gone. So.
Okay. On, Wednesday, I went to the mobile food pantry as well. Diane sent me the numbers, and, they had 23 volunteers. For the Humboldt families, they ended up with 86 families, 216 family members, 4 veterans. Humboldt Homes, they delivered for 41 families, 52 members, 2 veterans. Livermore Boat area, they had 31 families, 47 family members, and 1 veteran. So for a total, they ended up with 158 families, 315 members, and 7 veterans. And she has on here, September 14th will be our next mobile down at the fairgrounds. So, once again, we thank the group that comes down there and distributes. They have it, it's really, by the time we all get there, the group has already put the boxes and whatnot together, and it's all portioned out, and they put it on tables, so Diane and her group have a pretty good assembly line that we do the easy part, hands out, and keep moving, so that's what I did.
Sounds like from your report that the distribution is really working well.
And you know,
Get it out to that,
we have to thank, Janet Birdie, because she took the ball up there and got the people, and they have people that come down and get it.
They get
The
it,
truck unloads at like 1 o'clock, and they're there at 1:30. They take their stuff, they take it up and distribute it. So it goes from Livermore to Bode. They got a group that goes to the Humboldt homes, and they get the paper turned in the morning of. They know where it's, which place it goes,
Really?
and people bring it and set it on the tables, and they come and get it, so
that's all.
it's really, they're doing a good job,
That's
so.
good, 'cause I know there was issues over the past years you've been doing this, Bruce, that the distribution wasn't always as good as it needed to be, but it's good to hear that it's much improved.
I think they're refining it weekly or monthly as they need to, and things have really went together well, so.
Good.
So it definitely takes the community.
There, and you know, we have pretty much the same group that comes almost every other month. And you usually step on somebody's toes. We have a couple there that like to, I'm not gonna mention any names, but I'd like to pat him on the back and we'll say it off camera and you'll say, I knew it, I knew it, you know. But you get to see a lot of things, and that's one of the things when people appreciate the fact that they can get this stuff, it's pretty cool, so. Anyway, Trish, you have anything, or we're gonna go to drainage?
I do.
Okay, well, let's,
Motion to go under drainage.
motion second and a second to go to drainage at 9:02, all in favor?
Aye.
Pose same sign, we're in drainage. Remind, we have a meeting Thursday morning with Aaron on,
The safety.
yes,
I've got that on my, yep.
so hopefully 8:30 is what I thought it said.
Yep, it is, it's 8:30, I got it on my calendar. On my phone, it shows the time. I'm there yet. When I bump into you, first of all, Terry, every day.
I'm in both.
Colin, you can come up if you want. Welcome.
Morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got two.
So, yeah, this is a meeting on the reclassification of this lateral ditch of drainage District 11. And if you remember, so there was a petition that was filed to do a clean out of that open ditch. And let's see, you got that handout. There's a map kind of, just a second, they gave you a... You should have a map here. Well,
This one's in the middle.
yeah, there's one in the middle of the...
Like 4 or 5 pages in.
Yeah. So you can kind of see the area that we're talking about here, and prior to, I guess, me getting involved, we did a little bit of survey to look at how much silt that accumulated in the ditch and everything, and wrote a letter report saying that, yep, there's a clean out's needed here. And at that same time, there was talk about, okay, how's that gonna be paid for? Do we annex them into sub-2 of DD 11? And that was some stuff that happened before I got involved, but, then, when I had done research, it appeared to me at that time that there was no classification ever done to separate out this lateral from the main open ditch. So if you're gonna do repairs, how's it gonna get paid for? And DD 11 is a very large district, and most of the people that are in that district their water doesn't even go into this ditch. And so, we recommended that a reclassification be done to separate out, so that there's a schedule on file for just this open ditch. Now, I will let you know that I had talked with Paul on Friday, and he was asking some questions. He asked when DD 11 main open ditch was last reclassified, and so I started looking in our files for that, and I found that has been done like about 7 years ago. And unfortunately, when I actually found that, there was a reclassification that included the main open ditch and lateral ditch. And so, the report doesn't say where that lateral ditch is exactly, but I started looking at some of the parcels, and sure enough, this lateral ditch actually was part of this reclassification done in 2015. So that's unfortunate, because that was done 7 years ago, and now I've got a new report that you've got in front of you. And typically what I would do to start out is, when you look through the history, you can call up like the county and say, what schedules do you have for this district? And something went funny there, because I was not aware that there was a schedule already in place for this lateral ditch. One thing that probably confused it too is it was never entered into the computer system. That's something I always have to check, but in talking with Trish, that there's nothing ever been assessed against this schedule.
That's why it wasn't in there.
That's why it wasn't in the computer system. So it's one of these, it just kind of slipped through the cracks. But even with that being said, I would still make the argument that the one that you have before you is an improvement on the one that was done 7 years ago. And I can show you, I'll just hand out a map. This is the classification from 2015. It shows the dollars. If you did a $50,000 project, who would be paying what portion of the project. This classification in 2015 is based primarily just on soil type. So basically the wetter the soil, and the more drainage that's needed to have highly productive farm ground, the higher the assessments are gonna be. So the greens are the lower dollar per acre amounts, and the reds get higher. I do have, I printed out the bunch of copies of the new ones, but I don't have a ton of them. I just got one, I guess.
You need copies?
Yeah, if you could get copies, Trish. 'cause then you can see kind of the difference in, 'cause there is differences in how the dollar per acre turned out. Some factors that I used in the work that I just did, in addition to the soil type, was proximity to the ditch. So the further you are from the ditch, the less benefit that you have from that ditch, 'cause you still gotta get your water there. Use of the ditch, and I think we've talked about all these before, but use of the ditch, so if you dump your water in at the very top end, your water is flowing through 100% of the length of that ditch, versus if your water comes in at the bottom end, you might only be using 20% of the length of the ditch. So if repairs are done on the whole length of the ditch, should you be paying for all the work that's done upstream of you that really didn't help you at all? That there's a factor in place for that, and we just call that the use factor.
I got a question for you. Is there county mains that go up through here?
Yes. Yep. It's sub-2 of DD 11, so that there are county tile in there, and they have their own separate assessment schedules for those specific tile.
All right.
Yep.
On which one? Which one is separated? This one or this one?
Say that again?
Is sub-2 of 11 now this?
No,
This is just for the open ditch portion?
correct. Yep.
Sub-2 of 11 is still at sub-2 of 11 for the tile line?
Yes.
Very good.
Yep. Yep, each separate facility has its own schedule, so if work is done on that facility, that's how it's paid for. It's the people that use
Water.
it's not surface water only, because there's tile that dump into the ditch.
So it's an outlet.
It's an outlet, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, if you can see both of these, the proximity and the use, what ends up happening is the land's kinda at the top end of the ditch, that are close to the ditch and use the whole length of the ditch, and if they have wet soils on top of that, they're gonna end up with the highest assessments here. But with this new one, again, assuming a $50,000 project, it's a $34 an acre average over the whole area. The highest one in here is 57 an acre, so it's not quite double the average, which, when we're looking at the spreads of these, 2.5 times the average for the highest is well within the norm, so that's not out of line in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it is unfortunate that this was already classified 7 years ago, and we went to the work of doing it again here. But I would still argue that there is some benefit in this one is better than this, as far as equitability.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a complete, like, oh, we just redid the same thing, and
Mm-hmm.
just a complete duplicate of effort.
So we'll have to make sure that it's entered into...
Yeah, I think it's fully reclassified now.
Yeah.
Twice in 7 years. Yeah, that is unfortunate, but, I mean, you did it, so, and you did add a factor that you explained that wasn't in the previous, so, I mean, no use crying over spilt milk. We'll go with the one that you just did and probably move forward.
I wanna make sure too, like, I typically would check with the county, and I had discussions of that, but somehow it slipped through the cracks, and I don't know if I need to come in every time and look myself through all the records to see what was done, or basically make sure this sort of thing isn't gonna happen, and then figure it out right before the work's already all done.
That would be wise. Yeah, make sure you're not...
File, it was right there, in the file, so.
I mean,
The file just wasn't registered.
did the borders changed a little bit? It looks like
It
they
did change a little bit,
Yeah, I was gonna say, it looks like the borders have changed
The full
slightly.
acres are about the same, but yeah, the border did change a little bit. And again, because I wasn't aware of this work that was done, basically this boundary was drawn
Mm-hmm.
from scratch, like to start over. So there is a little bit of difference there.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I mean, feel free to reduce the cost of the second reclassification for the district.
We'll sort of talk about it.
I mean, you did, and granted, I know you're being quite upfront, you didn't research anything old because you didn't know there was anything to look at. Obviously, otherwise you'd had discussion on that prior to doing this.
We always do some upfront investigations, but obviously didn't do enough to be able to uncover that.
So, yeah, I'm sure the district would appreciate the discounted second reclassification. But otherwise, I mean, we've got that taken care of.
Is there any
do
questions?
we have any, Paul, do you guys have any questions?
If you take the new reclass, does this one go away?
Yeah.
So there's no, so your business is null and void. The new one, you separated, yeah, it answered that question.
Well, this one basically wouldn't exist anyway when it wasn't entered into, right?
It existed.
Technically, yeah.
It's here, but it's not.
And everything, but yeah, it wasn't.
It wasn't entered into our paperwork.
Right.
But even before that, there was a classification
Right.
in file. I mean, it's been cleaned numerous times, since 1913 or whatever. It's 219 years old, whatever the math was there. And this is the only one that I could find that did not have an open ditch and the tile, or just the tile as a sub 1 of 11, 2 of 11. Any of them that had open ditch and tile included the whole works from the get-go. Why this one wasn't, I don't know. But this has been classified as the main open ditch. The stub and the main open ditch have been done together. I remember a number of years ago asking Mr. Hopper, how come he didn't complete this portion when he went through? Because it clearly needed it then. But his answer was, the petition was only for the main ditch, which this is the main ditch, until 7 years ago. No, it needs cleaning badly, there's no question, and the mechanism, old, new, or otherwise, is in place to pay for it. It's grade critical, it's only got, what, 1.2 foot of fall or something top to bottom in a mile. Yeah, we don't wanna dig too much overcut. I recommend you hire him to supervise any of the cleanout activities, in some form or another, so that we're not overcutting, overwork, have provisions for cleaning out a 7-foot multi-blade. How are you gonna do that? How much that can cost? And the contractor involved needs to be aware and know those things. Hopefully, the main ditch on 7 isn't silted in, so we don't have to go 2 miles downstream to get it to flow.
The flow, yeah.
And that's why, that's why I asked, 12, 14 years ago, why we didn't clean it then, because we'll end up re-cleaning the main ditch at this point, but anyway. That's my questions.
How long ago was that main ditch cleaned? I mean, it appears like it's been a while, 'cause that bottom...
15, something like that, because, as you were talking about, the reclass happened several years after, and, maybe it was 10 years ago when they went up and down the whole works.
Yeah, I'm gonna say more like 10 years.
Because then we followed up with some, blowouts or whatever because of the fresh clean out then we hired, Mr. Peterson to come and do some corrections where we had meanders or bank failures, and that was after the whole thing cleaned out, so, and that's already been 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, I do kinda remember some of that work.
Because they went so far, ran out of money and quit, because they didn't even level the spoils, because they ran out of money.
I don't have the files with me, but it looked like to me, from what I saw on Friday, that the clean out that was done as part of this project didn't clean out the entire length of the open ditch. It was chunks of it.
You would be correct on that.
So it wasn't a full length, complete clean out.
There was a full-length clean out, and this followed it several years later after,
Okay.
seems like big floods or whatever, we wiped out and did pieces again.
Was
Because
that-
it went all the way through.
Would Jacobson Westergaard have done plans for the follow-up stuff?
Maybe not.
Because I know the plans that I saw was only for certain reaches
Right.
of the ditch.
Right, and that would have been the follow-up, so.
Okay.
My question is, do we need to go to the outlet of the main and come up to this branch, then continue up this branch?
That's a question for him. I mean, he needs to...
I mean, I haven't physically been out there and looked at it.
Well, and that's where find out, if we go to the main flow line of the main for the cleanouts, what kind of falls we have and where we have with the box or with that multi-plate.
Yeah, check all that out before we get started.
Right, set grade, because there's no point digging deeper than
Then you have to.
Then what was dug by the old drag line in the 60s probably overcut it 2 foot. There's no point in taking it out, it'll go back.
Or if they undercut it in some places, it may need to be deeper.
Somebody's been yelling at them if they undercut.
Yeah, I know.
Overcut, they didn't get yelled at.
We did set up, when we did a little bit of survey along here, we found from, I think 1983, there was a repair project done on this lateral ditch, and we used the benchmarks from that to establish a design bottom again, and the hard pan shot matched that design bottom pretty well, but we did not shoot anything in the main open ditch. We've got that design bottom set, so we could pretty easily come out there and put hubs to tell any contractor that was out there, this is how deep you need to cut down the bottom of the ditch to get to the grade. But yeah, I don't know about, we'd have to do a little bit more survey and get in the main open ditch, DD11, to see if that would...
How far into the main ditch would you go?
Well, we already have the design grade of this lateral ditch set up, so we know what elevation we need. We could, as soon as we went out there and saw the elevation, we'd know right away.
If it's good, you're okay, but if it's not good, then you gotta go...
Then we'd have to go down further and figure out, well, how far we need to clean this out.
Ask Ben what year that multi-plate went in, because as we were doing the design, they weren't quite there yet. We were working with Rick Hopper in our design phase of the, multi-plate at Nygaard's, trying to establish flow line to make sure we didn't have to, that we had the right grade. And they had run up through with construction staking, and I think we pulled off of their grades from that design grade on the main to make sure we were deep enough with that multi-plate. And it was right in the same time period.
That's at the road crossing, 140th
Yeah.
Street?
Yeah.
That, we shot the flow lines of that. That's about 7/10 of a foot lower than the design bottom of the ditch.
Because it's supposed to be a half.
Yep. So that's in good shape.
That's good to hear.
Okay.
Well, I mean, for what we're looking at, the reclassification, I mean, we're going with the new one.
We're gonna have to accept it and then place it on file.
Yes, and when, I think everyone's learned from the oversight. You know, this supersedes the one done 7 years ago, and we move forward. So I think, as far as, I don't think there's argument on this reclassification, other than it's too bad that we missed the one that was done previously. Could maybe-
Well, if you look, you know, typically a reclass costs about $2 to $4 an acre, depends on how big it is, and if you look at the cost from top to bottom, that's basically what it does. It raises the ones down here a little bit more, and the upper end, they pay less, so it evens it out, more equitable.
I think it is a more, Colin's right,
So
more
there is
equitable.
value to this,
Yeah,
being
and they're
done
gonna,
the second time.
they're gonna be very, conscientious in their billing, hopefully, to the district for doing it. Do we need a motion to accept this? I would make said motion to accept the current reclassification from Jacobson Westergaard for the DD number 11, lateral A ditch.
And put on file.
And yes, we won't miss this again.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to accept the new reclassification for DD 11, lateral A. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It is accepted.
Well, good work, Colin.
Anything else going on? Is it raining up your way, or are you pointing it all up there, or what?
No, we're starting to need a little bit of rain, but it's not dire yet, forecast. Looks like it might get there.
Well, when they're talking 90s for 2 weeks,
Yeah, it's gonna suck her out of the ground pretty fast.
things are canopied, you know, at least the beams are getting tall enough that they got the rows covered up that hopefully they can shade but we are hurting.
I think there's probably a good root systems too on stuff which will help, but it doesn't last forever.
No.
And then, next Monday, we've got that bid letting for DD 103.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Coming up. There's quite a few,
Lot of interest?
contractors that have been looking at plans.
Good. Well, hopefully have a good,
Hopefully we'll get
good
good
bids.
bids.
Yes.
What time is that?
To get that project done this fall.
9 o'clock?
Yeah, well, we're on track
Yeah.
with the bid letting and the seed corn and all the rest of
Yeah,
that.
I think, like, we did put in the specs that they gotta wait until the seed corn's harvested, but probably by the time we get the contract stuff all done, it's gonna be about that time anyway, so.
Yeah.
Oh, we're on track, like you said, it'd be good to have it done this year. Should be.
Well, it's dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, take advantage.
Because quite often, that's all you do, make it rain, start a project, and...
Yep, and in our...
Let's go dig a hole somewhere.
Yeah. In the specs, I didn't have them tearing out the old tile, but if it stays dry like this, we'll probably do a change order and take out that old, just run right along
Right
that old
alongside.
tile.
Yeah,
Yep.
if it stays
To me, that'd be
this
a great benefit.
Yeah.
if it stays this dry.
You don't wanna bet, like, just force them to do that if it's dumping water on them the whole time, but if the conditions are right and we know that tile's in bad shape,
Mhm.
it's better to just do it, take advantage of the dry conditions.
Well, that'll cause it to rain, I guarantee if you do that.
Yeah.
All righty, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Colin.
Anything else in drainage? I haven't heard nothing from, Rodney. I talked to him, about that hole that he had out there. Jens was supposed to
Colin, can you?
get hooked up with him, but I haven't heard anything. I'll try to call him and see if we have any updates on that.
Beans, we just touched on the DD 11 main ditch, we got the lateral thing taken care of, which is good. We do have ongoing information and progress. The bottom, very outlet end of that hasn't been touched for ever.
That was what I brought up.
Yeah, that hasn't been, and we should be, we don't have anything yet, but information, I talked to Trish and Terry a little bit last week, of just starting at the absolute outlet to go up. It's a ways, mile, I don't know what the exact distance is, but this is in the main open ditch, and it gets past another, but should be previously classified, it's a ditch, but the thing of it is, it's not a sub or anything, there's two main tile districts that dump in, it's their outlet to get to that ditch. That also has never been cleaned. So everyone involved, the tile districts, and everyone is requesting this clean out, but the only way that they're lateral, or it's not lateral, it's a tile outlet, makes sense, is to start at the very end of the main open ditch and clean up past that. So that it is the bottom end, and that's really where you want to start. And we should be getting some numbers from, one of our contractors, Brandon Meyer, on that, to just be able to get that done. And I touched base with Colin and Trish and Terry to see there's an existing agreement with those tile districts for that little outlet branch. So that would mean they would pay for that, and then the main ditch would go back to the main ditch, because that's already a class. So there's no reclassification.
There actually, I just found that, and when I was talking with Trish, there is a schedule for that ditch.
There is a schedule back to those two tile districts. So there's no reclassification needed, but it's the very lower end of DD 11.
So that lateral ditch
Is there.
has its own schedule.
Awesome.
So if any work done on that, you can assess to that
Yep.
schedule, and then any work that's done on the main open ditch.
Is for the main open ditch.
Yeah.
Yep. So at least, that would be, and I can show you approximately the...
Bloody run,
What's that?
that open ditch be bloody run, part of it.
Straight up, isn't it?
Right up, yeah. This is the very outlet, the main, you know,
Yeah.
It's proposed to start, obviously, where it dumps into the creek, Muddy Run, and get that clean. The bank failure is awful in here from the rains from past years. But this is also, means it's dry, a great time to fix it. And at least past this curve here, and you see, this is the outlet spur for these two tile districts, and Colin just mentioned, this is their outlet, so they pay for this, and then, of course, this is the main open ditch, and that's DD 11. So at least if you're starting on the right end, and then, for this other discussion, which would be this one over here, so when you talk, does it need to be cleaned out? Here's one we just reclassified.
That's quite a
Look at
ways.
the distance. Now, that can all be checked into and looked at, but at least the bottom end would be correct.
Yeah. Well, it needs to be straightened, because it really meanders.
Yeah, you can do so much. But this bottom end, anybody that is lived in, farmed in, owned ground in, either their outlet or the bottom part of this ditch hasn't been touched in anybody's memory. So, be a great little project, and it's actually split, and I requested the estimate to be split, because these two districts pay for their outlet, and this goes back to the main ditch.
So are you talking doing something like in maintenance, or are you
Yes,
talking?
yes, maintenance.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, so this benefits their tile outlet, and then this obviously benefits the flow for the whole.
For the main.
So it could go against two districts?
Well, yeah.
It will be split.
It'll be split.
Yeah, and that's what I asked Colin and Trish and Terry, and that's been confirmed, there is a schedule for their outlet. So, and it's just a nice little project, you know, and that's at least the end of it, and then any discussion from there going northwest, well, it can be addressed after that, but you've got at least the bottom end of it is correct, because it is all kinds of fouled up right now. There's been bank failure, the banks are just kind of sitting there again, waiting to fail, and the contractor has looked at it, and he's actually supposed to provide a real close estimate, and I said, make sure that's split, because it's two different projects, essentially.
And in the box under the road, that's probably...
That is in the box. It's a bridge.
Oh, it's a bridge here?
It's a bridge.
Okay, good.
Not a box, it's actually a bridge. So, should be getting some information on that, and,
Well, that surely will make it rain.
well, it might, but he's said this would be an awesome time to do it. And
Yeah.
the tile district folks are realizing that their little spur has never been touched, probably since it was put in, and it's starting to get a little bit wonky, but it's a smaller, it's not a huge ditch, it's just an outlet ditch.
And not very deep in the ground.
No. Fairly quick fix, but now's the time to fix it, because they've had issues with the flow, obviously, of the ditch getting kind of messed up, it won't take the water out of those tile when we get the big rains, because it just doesn't have a very good path to get to the ditch, so.
All right, Terry, do you have anything?
How's things
calls?
going?
Lots of calls coming in, or not many, means it's not a lot of water flowing.
That's one thing, when it's dry out, you don't get a lot of drainage calls.
Not much of anything.
I guess I just had one question, and this is like touch base with Trish and Terry, and not Colin, more so on the scheduling of it. This is just a work order repair project. This isn't an improvement, it's just a ditch cleaning.
Yeah, unless it gets too high dollar, but it shouldn't be.
No, not from the initial estimates. How much, if any, notification do we send to the folks in the districts?
I think we should definitely send letters out to the people's land we're working on.
That's what Trish's comment was.
You know,
Well, it's probably less chance of getting
In the,
really scolded.
this came from request of landowners in both districts. So, I mean, there's not, on the...
I mean, if you send it out to the whole district, it is a ton of mailings.
And it doesn't
Affect them, really.
directly.
There'll be a little cost to the whole district for maintenance.
But it's, Brad, when you get to that main
Send
ditch,
it to the outlet, the 22, 25 common outlet people.
Yes.
and I think yours and Rick's comment was the same, the DD 11 people, just the landowners that touch,
Yeah.
that their land touches where their work would be done, is that?
Right.
Yeah. I didn't, you don't wanna make a lot of work for those, for Terry, and, yeah, that, you get into DD 11, that's a huge district.
Yeah.
And
It'd be a lot of stuffing.
yeah.
Did you have something, Colin?
Well, I was gonna say, because you have it split up, each one of those, you can look at the dollar amount individually for notice requirements to those districts.
Right.
So you can look at them as a separate
They are.
affair.
Yeah.
And as long as you're less than $50,000, you don't have to have a meeting for a repair. If you're over 50,000, you have to have a meeting, but you still don't have to have an engineer's report until you get up to like 139.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess not that so much, but yeah, just the notices, but with, and I've heard from a lot of people in both districts, and everybody's, let's get it done, they're favorable, it's not, there's not a dissent, and, because they're requesting it, so.
But there's always somebody that isn't in the know, and...
Well, we want the people that, yeah, they know it, and that's where we've run into that before, and...
All right.
And that's on 22, 25, right?
And then in DD 11, whose ever property touches the work area.
Anything else in drainage?
Motion to go out of drainage.
Second.
Motion and a second to get out of drainage. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Pose same sign. We are out of drainage.
Anything else?
Can you send out some notices, 'cause it looks like this is something that could be started within the next couple of weeks on that.
We do have a
I think they're
work session scheduled here
Brandon,
with Chris,
didn't get Kevin Tiller's blessing,
He had to run down
Oh, come on.
to
like Leopard guy.
okay?
Motion to adjourn?
Can't believe that.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
9:40.
Opposed, same sign.
That I can't hardly
Adjourned.
believe.